Hello there and welcome to GE13 Showdown. Now the battle for the hearts and minds have begun. How is the sentiment out there, especially among the rural Malays and urban Chinese? With us to tell us more is Tukang Cerita himself, or storyteller Karim Ruslan. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Anne.
You have crisscrossed the country. What is the mood out there?
Well, actually, to be frank, as I was shooting for Cerita Malaysia with Awani, we weren't really after the political story. So it's only now I suddenly go, oh my gosh, we didn't ask, Bang Rosli in Kuala Kedah, what political party he supported, what he was doing. We were out there really getting their stories, how they've grown up, how much money they make per day as a fisherman, somebody manning a stall in Temelloh. So really we were listening to their stories and the challenges they face on a daily basis. If you're Iban, such as Sija from outside Cebu, the problems of documentation, getting an IC, the brother and sister in Keningau, one, the Ustazah sister, the brother was a father, Roman Catholic priest. So it's like ordinary lives. So actually I suddenly realized, for me, who normally write just about politics, it was actually extremely rewarding, far, far more satisfying than any of the political coverage I've done.
Wow.
And more than that, I kind of realized we have to trust to the goodwill and the enormous good sense of the Malaysian people. I should add that one of the last episodes I did was in Selayang. It was actually at my driver's Rumah Pangsa, low-cost flats. They have 2 blocks of apartments, and apartments really, they're flats, low cost. And the developers failed, and finally the residents themselves, there are 480 units, they had to take over and manage the blocks for the kebersihan, the water, the electricity. And it's like 70% Malay, 30% Indian, Chinese, others, some rented out. And they all did it very well. And they had like a tour on every floor who monitored everything, monitored the payments. And I realized that people say, oh, you can't leave Malaysians to their own devices, they'll be fighting, they'll be doing this. But here is a community, essentially a very urban, densely packed community, a lot of people living on not very high incomes, who managed to come together, work together, figure out a means of respecting one another and at the same time creating a community where they could bring up their families and keeping an eye on issues of drugs, issues of violence, social issues. And there are a lot of the kids from there who'd all managed to qualify, get degrees. So it really made me realize that there's a tendency for government to be too deeply involved in people's lives. We have to stand back and let the people take charge more.
That's right. And in terms of sentiment, is there a difference that you found between the rural Malays and urban Chinese?
Well, no, I think there's a... Don't forget, I've been traveling a lot over East Malaysia, okay? We did 4 episodes in East Malaysia. We spent some time about 60 miles outside Kuching in the small town of Bao with the Bidayu, 2 young girls called Molin and Abby who just started work at the KFC. Now, working at the KFC in Bao is like working in Alexis in Bangsa.
Wow.
You're in the hottest place in town, And they were very excited. And the sentiment was like, well, these are our lives, we're happy because we've got jobs which pay EPF, we don't have to commute to Kuching to work, we can go home and be with our families. All the families had small kebun, they grew their own vegetables, some had, also had chickens and different things.
So they're very satisfied.
There's quite a high level of satisfaction as long as they have good water, electricity and roads, so that then they can themselves sell their produce in town. The case of Sija, who's only like 25 miles outside of Cebu, their longhouse community, and there's 7 longhouses with 1,800 inhabitants. I visited them 2 years ago. There's no water, there's no electricity, and there's no asphalt roads. I went back, and now, just outside Cebu.
Okay.
And I went back again, and there's no water, there's no electricity, and there are no roads.
After 2 years?
After 2 years.
We'll take a quick break, hold that thought, we'll come back for more with Karim Ruslan. we're back on with Karim Raslan. A very interesting story. What was the most interesting, perhaps, that you have actually come across?
Okay, without a doubt, it was spending time with the brother and sister, Dusun brother and sister, the Dakuns in Keningau. The brother is a Catholic priest, and the sister is an ustazah. They come from a family of 12, if I'm not mistaken. And before that, their father and mother were had traditional animist beliefs, and they allowed the children to decide what they wanted to be. And it was very interesting listening to them both discuss how they found religion and how they made their separate decisions and the commitment to their religion, but also at the end of it, the commitment to their families. They all meet for Raya together and celebrate together, including Father Francis, just as they all meet again for Christmas and also the Ka'amatan. And that, I think, struck me as perhaps the most important message, if there was any message I could bring from the journey, which is that these religious differences, if one family can bridge them, why can't we as a country? I think we do to a large extent, but we perhaps should be looking across the South China Sea more to Sabah and Sarawak for examples of multiracial, multi-religious existence and tolerance.
More in Sabah or Sarawak?
Sabah and Sarawak definitely much more so than the Peninsula. The Peninsula were very hardened in our views. We're very categorical. But in Sabah and Sarawak, issues of race and religion are not nearly as pronounced.
Some have said that we are now a maturing democracy with growing pains. What is your view on this?
Oh, certainly we're a maturing democracy. There's a great deal of involvement. Now, of course, I went around really looking at people's stories, listening to their stories, not asking them, what are your political views? Because I wanted to get a sense of what drives their lives, motivates them. For example, this amazing ustad, who's the coolest dude I met, he's 85, in Jili, who spent one morning every week in Pusat Serenti, essentially now a care and rehab center. Really, really good guy, and very, very concerned about how young Malay parents were bringing up their children. He said, they don't manage their children well. They don't care enough. You have to discipline your kids as well.
He's telling you this.
He was telling me. And then he was saying the other thing is that we as ustazes are increasingly going to have to manage and be called upon to advise in social matters about how children are brought up, social problems. And he said the drug problem in the villages is so bad. And that was a real wake-up call for me. The prevalence, for example, of drugs across the kampungs. Drugs are like some kind of, it's a terrible, terrible plague across our country. And amphetamines, methamphetamines, heroin, you can call and people will deliver to the smallest house. And I think for the Malay community, this is perhaps the most dangerous thing facing the community. So it's these type of things. And we talked with drug addicts who are coming through rehabilitation, who are so worried about, God, am I going to be able to pull through? I'm married, will my wife stay with me? Will my family stay with me? This is the first time. If I get caught again, if I fail, I'll be like some of the older guys here who've got nothing.
These are the stories you're telling you.
And I'm listening. This is their stories. Yeah.
GE13.
Well, GE13, by comparison, yes, of course, it's critical, yeah? But had I not done
Mother
that...
of all battles,
Mother
elections
of all
of all
battles.
elections.
But the key message is, we have to trust to the wisdom of the Malaysian people. I do not believe that there's going to be racial riots. I'm very, very unhappy when I hear our senior leaders talking like that, saying there'll be racial riots, there'll be trouble. What we've got to do is trust to the wisdom of the Malaysian people. I've been into the inner urban centres, and frankly, Malaysians are so sensible. I go to the kampungs and people are struggling to live there, but they're also struggling against really modern problems. Drug addiction, the prevalence of amphetamines, methamphetamines, pil kuda. These are the real issues which are never mentioned.
Right. Quick comparison with Indonesia. Quick one.
Wow, Indonesia is democracy to the nth degree. Straight after this, and really Indonesia is where I work.
Okay.
I'll be, May the 5th I finish, I'm on Astro for the night. May 7th I'm back down there again. We will be rolling into the Indonesian elections, which come in 2014, legislative and presidential. And actually, there's a very big, important gubernatorial election in the province of Jawa Tengah. I'll just tell you, Jawa Tengah has 38 million population, and that provincial election is bigger than Malaysian. And so I know a number of the candidates, so I'll be following them. So my life doesn't change. I'm always on the ground following people, observing people, listening to people. In fact, my teams are already in Semarang, in Solo, in Banyumas, checking things out.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
Khairul Raslan, who is storyteller, you just heard his stories, and he's also a star columnist. He's been on GE13 Showdown. And as he said, trust in Malaysia.
Trust to the wisdom of the Malaysian people.
That's right. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Anna Edwards-Butler.